Hello and welcome back. It is now a beautiful April 28th. Gorgeous morning out. It was a gorgeous Saturday, although yesterday, Sunday, was pretty windy, cold, and miserable. But things are looking up from here, I think. So let's take a look and see what's going on this week. Well, some of the weeds are still doing really good. Here in this spot, we got patches of downy brome and foxtail greening up, as well as some pretty big flicksweed. You can see these guys now getting about 4 inches tall, probably a good 8 inches wide. We also still have some volunteer overwintered canola. I don't like seeing this. It's not quite normal that canola survives the winter as a volunteer. It really shows you how mild of a winter we had this year. Well, now the conditions are warming up. We're really starting to see some Russian thistles. You can see these little tiny guys. They're very faint. They're very skinny at this stage. The cotyledons are still kind of unfolding here. Kind of almost looks like really, really small grass. But these guys are indeed starting to emerge. Well, potato planting is underway and things are looking good so far. It looks like soil conditions are good. If the weather stays good this week, we should be getting lots of acres planted. Starting to see a few patches of Canada thistle starting to come up now as conditions improve and warm up. You can see we got a good one right here, another one here mixed in with the dandelion, a couple more scattered throughout. You can see the skeletons from last year's adults here. So these guys are just coming up from the underground rhizomes. So at this stage, there's not a whole lot you can do as far as like mortality, but if you're doing a pre-burn ahead of cereals, you can throw in something like DB878 or Corax. Any product that has a good shot of group 4, like dicamba, is going to have some pretty good effect on that. Should stunt it, keep it suppressed until the crop can take off. Well, it's a beautiful Wednesday morning now. There was some showers moving through the area last night, but nothing too dramatic out this way. Barely even a hint of moisture in my rain gauge this morning, and the gravel roads are already dusty. But I'm out here checking out a pea field. I'm over by Kehoe Lake. You can see we got some pretty good emergence going on in here. We got a pretty good stand of these peas starting to come out of the ground. So everything here is looking pretty good. Too early yet to check for nodulation, but it is a good time to start watching for any pea leaf weevil. So far I'm not seeing any notching, no nothing on any of these leaves, so everything is looking pretty good at the moment. This field has got a huge flush of lamb's quarters and kochia coming up, especially around the west headland here. And you can see that lamb's quarters is coming up so thick you could almost cut it and sell it as sod. And you can see all those little mealy leaves here growing pretty rapidly in the warmth and the sun. And also a bunch of kochia mixed in here as well in various stages, everything from little purple cotyledons to, having a couple open whorls on it. So there's not too much point spraying this established stuff out here, because this field is going to get worked here in the next day or two and get reseeded back into corn probably in the next week. After it has been seeded, we are going to come in with a product like Focus or Zidua and use that as kind of a broad spectrum residual, which will hopefully reduce the emergence of weeds like these, as well as things like buckwheat. Well, this patch of cutworm damage along the edge of a field by Picture Butte that I found last week has been sprayed just about a week ago now. And so far, things are looking good. I've been scraping around in here for a while, haven't found any sign of any alive cutworms, and you can actually see some of the plants that had been chewed off at the crown are actually now starting to regrow. So that's a really good sign of recovery. This patch will always kind of be behind and be thin, but if it at least fills in, then that'll help with weed control in the area. Well, lots of winter wheat fields like this one are looking very good right now and are right in the stage for in-crop herbicide. So some fields are actually getting a little bit late. This one we still have about a week before we have complete row closure in here. So once you get row closure, it gets really hard to get adequate coverage to control any small weeds down inside the canopy. Now that we've had, some higher temperatures and a little bit of moisture too, there's lots of weeds like yellow foxtail, millet, as well as wild oats that are emerging. So now is a good time to get those while they're still small. Here we have some prickly lettuce starting to show up in a winter wheat field. So this prickly lettuce here is usually pretty distinctive. If you flip the leaf over, you'll see right on the bottom of the rib, there's kind of a row of spines down there. So as the plants get bigger, those spines get better and better defined. But that is the easiest way to identify a prickly lettuce compared to some of the other sow thistles. One of the fun things about walking around looking at the ground all day is you do occasionally run into Native American artifacts. I found a different kind of artifact today. This is definitely a white man artifact here. So you can see buried in the ground here, we'll carefully extract it. We do have a, looks like a number 2 noodle. So fun little golf ball there. This fall rye is looking really nice today. As you can see, we are pretty much at row cover here. You can barely see any ground between the rows. So things are doing very good here. We're just starting into stem extension. This is going to start picking up height pretty fast. Well, now that we have wheat and barley coming out of the ground, it's time to start watching for seedling disease as well. Now, by the time it's coming out of the ground, there's not much you can do about it because really your only effective way of dealing with seed treatment is by having clean seed that tests clean and using a seed treatment. Now, as you can see here, any of my customers you would expect to see using a seed treatment, and that is going to be our best defense against any sort of seed-borne or soil-borne seedling disease. If you're not using seed treatment, you're probably not watching a channel like this learning how to farm better in the first place, but you could probably expect on the average year anywhere in the ballpark of 10 to 15% seedling mortality from seedling diseases. And the ones that are kind of prevalent in this area would be things like Fusarium, Rhizoctonia, Pythium, Cochleobolus. There's a bunch of different fungus diseases that kind of in general become what we call the root rot complex. So keep your eyes open for them. Well, this field of peas is just barely starting to emerge. You can see we have a couple like this guy here and there, so pretty few and far between, just barely breaking surface. But because they are breaking surface, it means we are out of time for doing any sort of pre-burn. And as you can see, we have a huge pile of wild oats here that have been emerging in the last week. This field was applied with Authority Supreme, but it doesn't seem to be keeping all the wild oats anywhere near under total control. So we are going to have to take care of these in crop. Well, there's my first seeded canola field. Things are looking pretty good here. Seeding depth mostly between 3/4 to 1 inch, I would say on average. Now canola seed, that's a pretty good depth for canola seed. Really, you can seed up to about 1 inch without any stand loss. After that, depending on what conditions you're facing, you can reduce your canola stand after about 1 inch of depth. So here we're doing pretty good. We're nicely in the moisture, and we should have no problem getting these seeds germinated and up and out of the ground. And we just got to start watching out for cutworms and things in the next week or two. Now, this field of wheat was seeded into canola stubble, and it is absolutely full of volunteer canola. You can see we have a really good patch here that is germinating, and it's all a little bit off color. You can see some of these ones that have emerged the last day or two are kind of turning lime green and kind of look a little sickly, whereas some of these ones look a little bit more of a healthy green. Now, this was hit with DB878 Pro as a pre-burn, so what that does, it does give us a couple weeks residual that is going to help with controlling volunteer canola. So as that canola hits the cotyledon stage, those roots start to pick up that chemical, it'll start controlling it. So you'll see it come up as a cotyledon, it just won't get any farther. Well, Friday morning here, we got lots of canola going in the ground. This particular field, I'm in a dryland corner of a irrigated field here right now. So our seeding depth is a little variable. This is kind of worked ground. I see there, we got a seed there. So we're almost between 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch there. So fairly shallow. We are in the moisture, but not by a whole lot. If we don't start getting some rain showers the next few days, like potentially on Sunday, then we're really going to start being in the danger zone of running out of moisture in the seed row for getting canola to germinate at a reasonable depth. So hopefully we do get some moisture. It does sound like in just a couple days some irrigation water is going to become available, but if you're not irrigated, that doesn't help you very much. Well, I've had Eric out here helping me get my first batch of plots in the ground, and I tell you, the summer students, they just keep getting younger every year, right, Eric? Yeah. So we've got 12 sets of plots in here that are all replicated once, so 24 plots in total. We're going to do a second location with another 2 replications, and right now only the first 3 treatments of biologicals and fertilizers are done, and those are the products that are done at pre-burn timing. So this field was just seeded about 20 minutes ago, and I'm in here now, so if we're lucky, we'll get a rain in the next day or two to help wash those treatments in, see if we get a difference in germination rates. Well, it's now 9 a.m. Friday morning, and it is a gorgeous morning out here. 17 degrees at the moment with a forecast high of 26. So start watching those temperatures. last week we were, with low temperatures, we were worried about spray timing, and in the next week or so we're going to start worrying about high temperatures, not so much the lows. So it definitely weather-wise feels like a lot different here this week. It really is starting to feel like spring, as we can see the prairies are greening up. Speaking of greening up, most of my customers are now pretty much done seeding cereals. Still a few acres to go here and there, but most guys are really getting started on their canola acres now. So we will see where that takes us. This field here behind me is going to be seeded into canola in the next couple days. So we'll see where that takes us, and we'll see you next week.